Hey, to whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds can stack back against the wall, but even consider it such, know you'll stand tall. Sat and watch from the sidelines, one too many times, wicked games we play, make me wanna lose my mind. Found solitude, knowing it'll be over soon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Contrary to the Culture. I am your host, Jaysa King. This podcast has been created solely to explore the depths of cultures around the nation. We will have interviews from experts, challenge the mainstream ideas surrounding the cultural identities in our society, as well as make sure we touch on misconceptions we have about. All episodes are brought to you on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. on all major podcast platforms, not to mention my website, audacityofwomen.com. There, under the podcast tab, you can find transcripts from every episode. In order to know how we're doing, I need you to show us some love. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment your experiences, but most importantly, turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the episodes. Now that that's done, let's jump into our episode.
All right. So, Miss Lisa Allen, first off, thank you for even doing this with me. As we talked, this topic is going to rattle some cages. So I'm excited to jump into it. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I think it is. I have been talking about this all week, and I've been working on this for months. So you'll hear a little bit about that as we talk.
Okay, let's do it. So this topic is the broken windows effect. That is the overall idea of what we're going to be talking about. And I did have a bunch of points that I've written down that I'm excited to jump into. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about what you do, your background, so they understand what you bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. So I do a few things. I am the president and founder of a nonprofit organization called Those Eyes Can Heal. Mm-hmm. And we support children and caregivers who have been affected by a loss due to long-term incarceration, mm-hmm. Violence, or any other loss. Mm-hmm. I also have a few for-profit companies as well. I have the L&E Creative Opulence. I repurpose and refurbish furniture. Mm-hmm. I have L&E Innovative Business Solutions. That's also a publishing company as well. And we work with businesses in strategic planning and program development and grants. Mm-hmm. And I also have the Journey to My Cup, mm-hmm. which I speak from state to state. I do customizable workbooks for self-exploration, mm-hmm. and I coach as well.
Okay, so hands down, everything.
A little bit of everything.
Everything, and I love it. I'm
also on the board of directors of Business Women Bruncheon as well for the Massachusetts chapter.
Yes, and we have to talk about that. We have to jump into how that ties into our topic as well. Mm-hmm. So to start, because I am a huge advocate for prison reform. That is huge for me. So mm-hmm. Tell me how you got into that. Let's start there. What made you want to help people that were affected by the prison system?
Well, mine is about violence in general, you know.
Okay.
And so when I live in Springfield, Massachusetts, okay. We have the highest crime rate in Massachusetts, higher than Boston. And we're a very small city. I think last year we had 32 or 33 murders in Springfield. So when that took place, I couldn't figure out why, you know, and everybody has an answer. But I needed to find out what it really was. So I did a little research into that. And I realized that there's a lot of players that are involved that create the outcome of what is happening or the effects of what is not happening, and in terms of the recidivism as well. So it was really a research to see who was committed to our community, mm-hmm. and what were the conditions of our community, mm-hmm. and where do we need to place the supports in the community. Mm-hmm. And that was one of them.
Okay.
in terms of that. So that's why I became interested. And it's not just in terms of the prison, but in the whole broken system itself of the community and how it plays a part with the political structure.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when I think about this topic again, broken windows effect, for people that don't know, it was an act that was put upon minority communities. Mm-hmm. It was an agenda. Okay. So let's just keep it plain. It was an agenda. It was something that was done to really break down the minority communities, to make them feel less than, to make them feel overly policed, which they were, to mm-hmm. do these things in order to break the spirit. Okay, again, that's just keeping it plain. If you want to do more research, by all means do it, but this conversation is going to dive more into it. Mm-hmm. However, the point of this, at least from my perspective now, is my question to you would be, at what point do you think we can regain that accountability in how we move forward with our own communities, right? So we know for sure that at some point, there was an agenda and there was so much that was done to our communities. However, I can definitely say, just from seeing conversations I've had with other people, that we have a lot more control than we give, credit for. Do you think at some point we have accountability in how we can fix our communities?
Well, I could say that I think that our minority community plays a big role in the destruction as well. I'm just going to be honest, because I see it in my own community. I know that I get it. Yeah. I get it that, people want power and positions. Mm-hmm. And that's great. But what happens is it affects a community as a whole, and they show it over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. Political figures, state reps, councilmen, mayors, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I think we do it to ourselves a lot of times. We position ourselves to destroy ourselves. Mm-hmm. And the sad thing is that we as a community look at them as the ones to lead us.
Yes.
Right? We want to be led. Mm-hmm. So we follow.
Yep.
And we often follow into paths that we don't need to walk into.
Right.
But yes, historically, it has been set this way for us. They positioned us to kill each other. They mm-hmm. positioned us, for a lot of things. They positioned us not to have positions, right? But then we have us that decide we're going to follow for money. Mm-hmm. We're going to do things for a gain.
Yeah.
But what we don't understand or don't pay attention to is that when those political structures or those power structures leave, so does everything else about us.
Right.
And then where are we left? So we do have the ability to take control, but we allow others to determine the narrative of everything. When right. we can position ourselves to be fully in control. Mm-hmm. Because we are really not the minority.
Right. Right. Loop back around. Let's just be real about it. We're not. However, our behavior makes us minority. Let's just be real about it. And I think about what you pointed out as far as the narrative, right? Yes, over-policing started in our communities because of the drug overflow. But where did the drugs come from? Cool. That all happened. We can understand that. We know that. But now we're in a position where a lot of our young men are deciding to go on that same path of selling drugs to promote this lifestyle of drug behavior and not taking it back. Okay, we know that. We know that that's where it started. Why is it so important for us to continue that narrative? Why is it so important for us to feel like we have to see our value in a narrative that was set for us instead of getting away from it, promoting a different lifestyle instead of trying to be exactly what we were told we were supposed to be? Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, coming back to taking accountability, let's just be honest about it. We have to understand what happened in the past happened in the past. We need to know the playbook so we can move forward in the future and change our behavior. But we don't see that a lot. We see a lot of the blame game. We see a lot of, this is the only way I can make money. This is the only way I can progress in life. When in reality, that's not the truth. Something I came across that I thought was actually quite interesting. Do you think that even now, because I do think I see it now, that it is in the agenda to incentivize being a single mother for welfare, for all of these amazing housing perks? Do you think that that was something that was an agenda then, or do you think it's still something that we kind of play into now?
I think it was then. I don't know. I think a lot of women now are trying to enter in this world of independence. You know, they want to be that woman, you know, even those that are struggling. Yeah. I talk to many women on various levels, and I find that, you know, it is just that. I don't think that, you know, before it was, yes, let's be a single mom. I can go down to welfare. I can get an apartment. I can get Section 8. I can buy a house off of Section 8. You know, all of those things were ingrained, you know, because they wanted to keep us there. They really didn't want us to move. And we know that structure is meant for you to use temporarily, right? So that you can get yourself on your feet and do well.
Right.
You know, but the question is where are the people out here, our people, to support these individuals, you know, to change that narrative? I keep going to the narrative because it is a story to me. You know, it's a story. And where are we to change this? You know, we often talk about this. We're saying, okay, this is happening. You know, this is how women, you know, how women position themselves, how men position themselves, how women position men, you know, all of these things, you know, but where are we to come in and say, okay, we know that this isn't right. We know that there is something wrong. What can we do to change these narratives?
Right.
Because we can talk about this all day long.
Of course.
You know, I can tell you some good stuff, you know, but what is it that we're doing to change the trajectory of this world that is being destroyed?
And that's so interesting, because just thinking about your perspective and my perspective, a lot of it is coming from what we're seeing, right? So I know for me, my timeline, the people I encounter, does not match what we are being told is our narrative, right? I know a lot of people that believe complete opposite. They don't believe that everything is someone else's fault. They don't believe that we only have one way of living. But let anybody else tell us, let social media, let the masses tell us that this is all we have. So thinking about the influences that we surround ourselves with, of course, we're always going to stay in this narrative. Of course, we're always going to believe that there is only one way, because we are not allowing the people that believe differently, that want us to progress, actually exist. I have this conversation with my husband all the time. He's like, no, did you read the comments? Everyone is agreeing with this person. I'm like, if you don't get you a new algorithm, because something isn't right to where this is all we're exposed to, but it is our reality. You know, it's hard to think about, especially our kids. I think about my son. He's only one. I am terrified to see what the narrative is going to be when he is my age, you know? So my thoughts on us as a people, right? What would you say is a starting point to change the narrative and taking back that accountability?
Go right to the place where you just talked about Marvelous, right? And talk to the children. I was just having a conversation about that. You know, when you talk about a solution, as adults, you know, when we birth a child, we raise them as we choose for them to be.
Right.
And we never ask them, how would you like to be? Right?
Yes.
And so we're sitting here trying to come up with a solution for a particular age group, because that's where it really lies, right? But where are these forums with these age groups asking them, how can we help you? You know, if we can move out of our way and allow others in, you You know, it's oftentimes those outside influences often tell us how to walk.
Mm-hmm.
I walk on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't change things unless you're open to listen to what the problem is.
Right.
You know, you and I are sitting and we're talking about the problem as we see it.
Mm-hmm.
I would really love to have a child come on here and tell me how they see it.
Yes.
So to change things, why don't we start there?
Mm-hmm.
Let's start having some interactive sessions on Zoom or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's start having some roundtables with children.
Mm-hmm.
Let their voices be heard for once. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
Let's validate their needs. Wouldn't that be something? Wow, maybe if I'm heard, maybe I might put this gun down.
Mm.
Maybe if I'm heard, maybe I'll tell you why I hurt. Right?
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more powerful because we don't. And that's why we're where we're at. That's my thought about it.
Yes, I love that. We're more powerful because we don't. Ooh, and that is so true. And it's crazy how we really don't understand the things that we're being pushed away from is the most powerful thing. We don't understand if we took all that back, everything we can control, everything that we can put into fruition for our future is, you can't contain it at that point. Mm-hmm. But it's easier because we've already been contained. We've already put ourselves in positions to stay in that box, to stay in a position of just taking whatever comes in. And it's sad. Mm-hmm. So when I think about that too, it comes back to our different cultures, right? We are surrounded by people that have similar stories, especially when it comes to the immigrant side. There are plenty of immigrants that have experienced a lot of the things that the Black community is experiencing in the United States for generations. They've just experienced it. So when it comes to that conversation, I wonder your thoughts on not trying to make our story, our past, the only one that's experienced it, or that we're in the worst position. What are your thoughts on that when we know that there are a lot of people that have been in that position?
You know, I was hoping you wouldn't ask this question. I am so authentic, you know, I'm Coach Lisa, I'm authentic, right? So, you know, I'm a very empathetic individual, right? Mm-hmm. And so I care about many cultures, and I'm not going to go into specifics because there's a lot of things that are going on in this world, and I care for it all. Mm-hmm. And so the empathy comes when others experience, you know, the same experiences that I've experienced. And so I'm sorry to say this, Jasa, but this is how I feel. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel that through time and history, mm-hmm. our people have been the most oppressed people on this earth. Mm-hmm. We have been uprooted from a tree that was planted so deep, mm-hmm. and taken out from our land and placed in many. Mm-hmm. We have been made into many other cultures. Mm.
Yes.
We no longer were who we were. We then were landed here in this nation of hell, okay, right now. And we were then divided again. And then we were again made into different nationalities, not by our own. I love it. It's a melting pot of ours. But it wasn't, it was designed this way by others. Mm-hmm. I don't feel myself mm-hmm. that other people at this moment in time to equate other than some that are dealing in other countries right now, can say that they experience the same as us. And I'll give you an example. It has only been a few years when COVID hit. And I had a conversation with a registered nurse on African Americans and eating habits and lifestyles and the effects of COVID. The response to me was, well, don't all Black people eat fried chicken?
Ooh. No, she did. No.
This is in the 2020 something, right? It has not changed. We are still facing the same things that we have faced. So I don't know if they're experiencing the same level of oppression that I am facing. I don't know that. I feel sorry if you are. That is it.
Yeah.
Because I am still having a fight. We are still having a fight. We have not made it out. So I don't know how I feel about others. I do know how I feel about mine. And if you are struggling and you're not mine, I feel the same way that I feel for mine. So that's where I lie it.
Ooh, and that I think is very important, because I think that it's a misconception that when we say things such as supporting Black, right? Anything Black, people automatically assume that there is no empathy or there is no love for other people. I don't think that's what it means, right? Just from my perspective, I can't speak for everybody else. I can only speak for myself. It does mean, though, if I have the opportunity to stand up for mine, if I have the opportunity to give my knowledge, I'm going to do that.
Yes.
And I think that that goes back to other cultures, other nationalities. They do that. We are the only ones that publicly, privately do not support one another.
Yes.
We do it for the fame. We do it for the hype. We do it for a TikTok, but we do not do it genuinely. And I think that that is where it comes back to not just saying something to say it, actually meaning it. It is important to address the fact that within this nation, we are still facing a lot. We are. And as we mentioned in the beginning, there is a lot of things that we self-inflict. We have to fix it. We do have to fix it.
Absolutely.
Especially going back to the health aspects. Yes, we remember, we know the history. We were fed whatever. That we have a responsibility to kind of change our habits. Yes, we do. Is that someone else's right to say, don't y'all eat this? Hell no, it's not, because that's disrespectful. What in the world? I don't know. Look, I love fried chicken, but I know it's not good for me. I don't like it. But that doesn't mean, oh, Black people love fried chicken. My husband loves fried chicken. It's not a thing, but it is something that, again, goes back to us taking responsibility for certain effects. We have to kind of acknowledge how a lot of the stuff goes hand in hand. Yes, I have heard good things.
Understand, we are changing. We are not the same people we used to be. Understand that.
And that's all important. And it all goes back to one another. Everything that has happened in the past, it had an effect on us. And that is very important for us to know. But we also it is a constant cycle. We are doing it to ourselves more and more, to where it's like a business. Once you get it started, it can run itself. We are running somebody else's business, and it's sad. But anyway, like we said, we can go on a tangent about these things. We can go on a tangent. My thoughts, right? So I'm raising a son. I am raising a son very carefully. And something that we've talked about, me and my husband, is the kind of men we've seen in society today, right? I know I have a brother, he is 16. I know that when it comes to my Black brother, my Black son being out in this world, they are going to face hardships that I cannot control, my mother cannot control. But I also have a responsibility as a Black mom to nurture my child, to feel loved and all these things, but also give him the space to be a man. Something I have seen with a lot of Black men is wanting to be nurtured in every setting. They want to be pampered. They want to be taken care of as if the world is their mama. How do you think that as a Black community, we have a responsibility, guys, to separate the two. Yes, they are going to go out in this world. They are going to face hardships and they need love and nurturing. However,
Okay.
they also.
All right. So I was having a conversation about this with a man that was poor. And so I was thinking about this, right? Now, a boy is born
Mhm.
and his mother nurtures, and if it goes right, she nurtures him and until he's 18, 19, 20, 21, he goes to college. Like, say if this was the real deal.
Right.
And then, they may have a girlfriend in between, but mama's still washing their clothes and cooking the food and doing all those things. So we planted ourselves as this nurturer and told this child that this is what women do. This is, because you get raised by your dad tells you this is how you're supposed to become a man. The only thing a mom can do is show you how a woman is supposed to care for you.
Right.
So what makes us think, right? Because I said this to my clients. I said, what makes you think that when you get this man, that you are getting a man? You are getting his mother's child.
Yes.
So we get married, we take on these roles, or we don't get married, whatever it is. We move in with the man nowadays. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And we're washing the dishes. All of a sudden, we find ourselves washing his clothes. New day, now men iron their stuff, but we find ourselves doing those things for them. And then we turn around and we get resentful, right? Because why can't you do it for yourself?
Yes.
Because we naturally take on that role. You know how mamas get mad when they get with the girl and they don't want with the man, the boy. Yes, exactly.
Yep, sure do. I do.
And then the girl gets mad with the boy for being with the mama all the time or siding with the mama, or mama's always going to be number one. There's always that role of competition and the nurturing role.
Yeah.
It is up to us as women to set boundaries when the man enters into the relationship. So, if we set that tone where we bring that man in and we want to care for them, then we have created that monster. Don't complain.
Yep.
But if we choose to set that boundary and make him understand that what your role is not what it was.
Right.
And that these are the expectations of you, and these, I would hope, are the expectations from me to you, right? So no, I think that the expectation is that man is to be a man. And unfortunately, women out there, it is up to us to teach them, right? It is up to us as a woman to teach a man that what his position is. If you want to keep him to be a child, then that is up to you. You will forever have one, and you will be taking care of him.
Yep. Yes. And that is so that is so true. So the reason this came up is because I have encountered a lot of men, not in just a relationship setting, but just men in positions of having to work, in positions of having to just be a man and complaining. You cannot complain about something that is actually your role. That is your role. And if you are in a position to have to go to work, everyone has to go to work. And the things that are asked of you, because you're not catered to, because you're tired, because you're sick, because your clothes aren't a certain way, at what point do we say, okay, no, as the mother, I messed up. I put a little too much in there. I put a little bit too much mama, and I didn't set you up for what actually comes with this world. And for me, that's my concern. I love my son to death, but when he is at that point, even now, you need to go pick up that toy. He may not know what I'm saying, but it's because I know at one point he's going to have to leave mama, and he's going to have to know that this world is not forgiving. And there are things that he's going to have to encounter that I can't control. But a lot of moms now, especially Black moms, I find feel so bad. They hold so much guilt that they cannot control the world, or that they didn't set them up for what's to come, that they feel like they need to over nurture. They need to do everything for them. And we have these boys that are playing men and we are being led blindly. And I think that is something else that goes into a lot of what my platform talks about as far as that dominant and feminine masculinity mix. Women nowadays have no idea what we're doing. Let's just be real. We don't know what we're doing as far as being the dominant person. We are taking on little bits and pieces here and there, but we weren't meant to be dominant. We were meant to, be led and do what we need to do.
That's what they positioned us to be, Jason.
Let's talk about it.
Don't you dare say that out your mouth. Don't stop. Don't you get me started, Jason. Absolutely not. We were not.
Tell me about it. Let's do it.
That's what they want you to believe. No, I'm meant to be that way. I am that person. I am that one. Call me what you want, right? But just don't call me late for dinner. I will be that person. It's that role. That's why I said we need to set boundaries to teach them.
Okay.
Right? Because I think historically, if you go back, men were supposed to be the provider.
Right.
Why can't I provide? I'm trying to get to a place where I can have my husband put his feet up and I can take care of him because he's taken care of me for so long. Right? Ooh. It doesn't have to be a role. I don't have to allow him to be that forever. I'll run him to the ground.
Ooh, I know that's right. You know what? So the reason I used to be like that, and let me tell you what made me change. I was in a class for femininity. It was a workshop. And the example was used with lions and how two dominating personalities come together. They're always clashing. I was that dominating personality. I'm coming. I know what I like. I've set my life up accordingly. If you can't figure it out, it's you. It's not me. And I think about now with my husband taking that role 2 step back. Don't get me wrong. I'm still dominating where I need to be.
No, but I'm feeling you.
Okay, we here. I had to learn because my husband does not back down. He's not the type in any way, shape, or form. But I also understand that, right? At some point, it is okay. I'm trying to get to the same point where I can allow my husband to do whatever his heart desires because he's taking care of me now. But at the same time, it's interesting for me to think back in history, especially just with leaving it as simple as animals, right? Lions, leaving it with that example. Right. The male lions, they sleep all day. The women take care of the pride. The men protect. That's all they do. They protect, they sleep.
That's in human life. Go ahead. Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly what I think about now. Okay. So boom, we're going to loop back around, y'all. Y'all always know I got a point. When I think about women nowadays, we have been taken out of the position of being nurtured throughout history with slavery, just starting there. We lost all the men. They were taken, all their masculinity was taken through extreme acts. We know how that was taken. They were killed. They were put up against each other to where women had to stand up and take care of the family. Fast forward. Now we have prison reform. All of these things, males are taken out of the homes. Again, they are taken to a point where we have to stand up and do all these things. Fast forward again, we have a desire to be that woman. We have a desire to be independent. We don't need a man. Our standards are crazy to where men now don't want to be in our space. They're not attracted to us the same way. To now, where I think we are at a position with a lot of women trying to figure out why men do not want to be in that position. And thinking back to the men and not understanding why they don't have that masculinity, why they feel like they need to be nurtured so much. I think it's on us to say all of that. I think it is on us because we have pushed this dominance at every stage. Don't get me wrong, we had to. There was a lot we had to do, but there was no space for the man to come back in and be the man. There was no space for them to come back and reclaim that masculinity because at every stage, although we had to, there was just no space for them. There was no space for us to raise these men to be men because we were already the man. We were already father, uncle, we were everything.
And they're confused. Understand that.
Oh, yes.
Because, even though they've been given these roles, told you should be a man or you should be this or you shouldn't cry or you shouldn't feel or you shouldn't do that. They're messed up. Our Black men are messed up. you know,
Yes.
and until they take accountability for their messed upness, okay, if there was such a word, then they would go seek some help.
Yes. Ooh,
And then maybe they won't have to, like you say, like you keep going back to saying like that masculinity
mm-hmm.
and having this role and who they should be, and then now there's a role reversal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that it's so much of a role reversal. I think that little by little, men are understanding that they need to tap into their emotions and their feelings because they've been traumatized. They have a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
Based off of this.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know,
that is very true.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you know that, but you know, I think that it's just a different time.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're the same that we used to be. And I think we're moving differently. And I don't think we understand each other anymore.
Oh, yeah. For sure. For sure. That is also something me and my husband talk about a lot, just on a basis of communication styles. We lead by emotions. And I use the example all the time. When we're having an argument or we're arguing about something, he can remember the details down to a T. I can't tell you what. I remember how it made me feel. I remember, I went from point A to point B, and he's like, well, no, you did this, this, and this. And I'm like, as soon as I calm down, I'll remember.
Mm-hmm.
I'm over it. But understanding that just as a man and woman, we would get along so much better and understand, okay, you move in this way because you have to move in this way. I move like this because this is just how I'm made. But we don't do that. So we hold each other to such a crazy standard and expect somebody to understand, and we're never going to. And that's okay. But it is so important for us in this generation to be understood and accepted in different ways that just don't compute. I think as a woman, I don't need to speak like a man. I don't work off logic. I have logic. I can process logic, but the way I operate is through my emotion. I do things because I feel something. I do something because I see the goal being a joyous moment or something, but it's not built off logic. And for us to try and take on these behaviors, it's confusing. It's confusing. We're not doing it right, which is why you see a lot of women that try to be logical are so brash. They're hard to articulate their thought processes because they are trying to be something they're not. And then when we are met with men that are understood, they understand their position and how they're supposed to move or want to move. It's weird. We're all very foreign in our.
But we allow that. Did you just hear that? We accept it, what we accept, and we don't accept what we don't accept. So when a woman comes across that way, it's harsh.
Yes.
But when a man comes across that way, it's acceptable.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So therefore, that's why I am the way I am.
Yes.
Because I don't want to be accepted. I want to be me. And if you accept it, then you can benefit from my assets. That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. But that's right there. You position yourself and being told that if you speak up.
Right. Yep. And and that's it. And that's the truth. And I think that goes back to us understanding that we shouldn't be looking to anybody else's narrative. Loop back around. We are literally looking to, this narrative is my baseline. This category of person is who I'm trying to be. We are going to always be positioning ourselves in the wrong spaces. If we go back to just understanding, I am who I am. I am dominant here. I love to make sure I'm heard in this way. I love long walks on the beach. All of these things that make us individually who we are, it takes away the power of that narrative. But we are very conditioned in that with every aspect of our life.
So like what this is all about, like minor broken windows create large disorder in any environment.
Right.
And the disarray, you just don't understand. But any change that is ugly is going to cause problems. And so how do you pretty it up? How do you clean it up? How do you fix those broken windows is the end question, right? And how do you do that is by coming together and understanding.
Right.
And that's why I went back to listen to the children, right? Understand the new Black man.
Yes.
Understand the new Black woman. Stop going in silos. Stop trying to be the great I am and do things on your own. Everybody needs help. When you were born, the doctor said to the mother, push. Everything is evolving and changing. But it starts with the top and it works its way down.
Yeah.
And if we as leaders don't do the right thing, don't set boundaries, and don't teach people and lead the right way as minorities, we will always be in this condition. And our cities will always be ugly, and we will always have ugly people.
Yes. And let me ask you this. I actually have one more point that is around the violence aspect and the type of people we have in our community, right? So we have seen a spike, at least on the media side, of police brutality. Okay, so we know that this is something that happens. We believe it to be more often than what is actually happening. And when I think about the deaths that we've seen, right? Do you think that it is important for us to do the research into the person? Again, death is never an answer. Let me say that now for everybody listening. I know somebody's gonna be like, oh my gosh, she said it's okay. No, that's not what I'm saying. However, I do think that when it comes to us spreading narratives, when it comes to us talking about, oh my gosh, police brutality, oh, they don't care about us, we have a responsibility to do the research into the people and the acts that happen prior to a situation that becomes mass media topics before we just sit here and make a generalization about a specific group of people, meaning police in this example. Do you think that we have that responsibility, or should we just automatically, support it because it's within our community?
Support the brutality or support I'm a little bit confused.
Okay, so supporting us, right? So for example, with George Floyd, okay, from his background, he wasn't necessarily just a bystander. He had a bit of history, okay, on the police side. Not saying, again, he did not deserve to die at all. But as our community, we do have a responsibility to say what happened to make them go in it with that type of threat, to know, okay, this person is categorized as a level 2 threat within their system. So they go into it with a level 2, matching. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think there's a lot of things there. And this is just me, who am I? I think that there's a lot of components in this. When it comes to this police brutality and the George Floyds and all the George Floyds, right? And there's one, George Floyd had his own set of issues. And I'm going to blame the city from which he came from. Because they knew of this, because they talked about it after his death.
Right.
And so I say to myself, where was the help and the support and the resources that were needed to get him whole? Okay, that's one. Then you have the other side of those fools that did what they did.
Right.
Too, right. And I say to myself, where was the supports needed in that police department that was forever needed to teach these people about trauma-informed care, mental health, substance use, and all of the above and below?
Yes.
And so I say to myself, everybody wants to point the finger. I don't like what happened, and I think it was wrong, and I think they should rot in jail. But I think that there's a level of accountability that lies far before this happened.
Right.
And I think that we as a people need to be accountable for our people when we know that there's something not right.
Right. Yes.
Why do we allow people to get to a point to that? Because if he had the help that he needed to have, he wouldn't even encounter them.
Right.
Because I know he left from a store, and I know there was a bad bill passed, and I know that there was all these things.
Yeah.
But maybe he wouldn't even been there because he wouldn't need to been there. Maybe he would have
Right.
found something else to do. Maybe he would have been in a program. Maybe he would have been on some medication. Maybe the police would have been informed and said, we know this guy. Let's call the ambulance first. There's
Right.
a lot of things that happen around the world and everybody wants to point the finger. And what I'm saying is this. All sides, police, mental health, clinics, hospitals, schools, all of those people, homeless shelters, they all need to come together.
Yes.
Monthly, quarterly. They need to talk about these people that are experiencing issues, people that are coming out of jail
Yes.
and finding out, have they gotten all the resources that they need instead of dropping them off at the side of the road.
Yep.
I can't point a finger and I can't say this was wrong or that was wrong. What I can say, it's all wrong.
Right.
And everybody has it all messed up. And until people learn that I can't take your money from your organization and you can't take mine, then we will start collaborating together and providing the services that are needed for these communities so we can be whole, happy, and free. And we don't have to deal with these issues and we won't have to be sitting up on this podcast talking about them anymore.
And that hit the nail on the head because that's all of the points I wanted to talk about. We cannot sit here and do all of these conversations without addressing funding, without addressing the fact that there's lack of training, the fact that you can get out of high school and go be a police officer to try and help police other people that have issues that you haven't even experienced yet. There are so many components, as you pointed out, that go into all of these things we like to make our platform, that we like to make the talk of the town. That's not how it works, because if we're going to do it, we need to do a deep dive. We need to address every last single person involved and not just leave it at the easiest person to access. And that's just being real about it. That's the biggest point of this.
Imagine having all the chiefs and no Indians underneath you. No work will ever get done. And that is what is happening. There are so many chiefs and they have yet to identify the Indians that are going to do the work. So everybody wants to be the leader in the fight for something and you're going nowhere. Open your eyes, people.
Yes, y'all. Let me tell you, this topic I already knew was going to be amazing. I already knew. We are here and I love it. The broken windows effect. My final question for you, I do want to understand. Have you in your life experienced the broken windows effect personally? Obviously, we all have in some way, shape, or form, but I'm curious on your experience with it.
Okay. Here I go.
Let's do it.
October 2023.
That's recent.
I decided in Springfield, Massachusetts. I guess they probably thought I'd never talk about it. I decided to have a silent march for my organization, Those Eyes Could Heal, because of the extreme amounts of gun violence.
Right.
I didn't know what was happening, so I decided to form a committee. The committee consisted of councilmen, pastors, preachers, schools, therapists, mayor, everybody and anybody that you can think of. I was very clear in the letters that I sent out that this was a research on top of it, because I wanted to find out, why is our city in such a disarray? So we started meeting because people thought it was a beautiful idea. I had it led by a hearse. There were signs carried throughout the streets. You couldn't hear a pin drop. We marched from the park all the way to where all the people who got shot are buried. And the people's families spoke in that same graveyard about it. But during that time, understand, it was the time for elections. And I was clear that we'll see who they're going to vote for.
Right.
See if your number one priority is gun violence, because that's all you keep saying.
Right.
And so through this research, the mayor, I'm calling it out because it's the truth.
Yeah.
The councilmen, businesses, they all started talking about me. They don't even know me.
Right.
They went to each other and told not to work with me, not to join my board, not to do the march. They try to destroy it.
Right.
And I said to myself and to the lasting committee members, because see, funding does a lot of things to people. Some churches got funding, so they backed off. Some organizations got funding, so they backed off. And they were told, don't work with her. But see, what they didn't realize is that I had already formed these relationships prior. And I know how business works, so they backed off. And now they're working with me. But what happens is because the hierarchy of the city is in a silo. You have your Black political figures, your white political figures, and they all, support each other.
Right.
Which is great because I think you should. But I would have thought that your whole premise is to support the city.
Right.
So they made a lot of noise about the gun violence. And after the elections, we didn't hear much. It got silent. So I recently heard on the news that there is a downward trend in our gun violence. Right now, last year, we had 8 gun deaths. This year, we only have 6.
Oh, good.
You hear this?
Yes.
They put in a universal pass for people to get free passes to go to the Boys and Girls Club that's in an area of the city that's not the inner city. They didn't give money to the inner city youth center or the center.
Right.
They gave it to somebody else. How does this help our city? So am I experiencing it? Have I experienced it? Yes. I experienced that. What runs a city, and this is for all cities in every state. This is not unique to ours.
Yes.
But what I do know is that every city is controlled by somebody and some people. And if within that structure, they are either going to do what is right for your city to move forward and work with individuals that want to do the same, or you're going to make it appear to the masses that you are, so you can circulate your money between yourselves, which will then create a negative effect on your community. While everybody's sitting around saying, what do we do?
Right.
That is the broken window effect. Our city hall's windows are all broken. Every last one of your behinds are scarred. Every last one of you are beaten up with your lies and the words that you tell.
Yeah.
If you want your city to be wonderful, whole, and beautiful, and you want all of its windows to be replaced, because that's basically what cities want when they want to fix up things. I would say this: start in your own house. Fix that first. Come together authentically. Have good intentions for your cities. Help even the little ones that want to help, because they could be very impactful.
Yeah.
Don't be closed-minded. And those that are receiving money, don't think that it's going to forever come. Because that's a part of it too. Because when they go, so do you. There comes the crash. And so, yes, I have experienced it. It's very bad. It's all over the world. It does exist. If you think it doesn't, take off those blinders and put on your glasses. It's in every state. Everybody needs to work with their politicians and their mayors. If their mayors and politicians aren't working with them, you need to find somebody that will. Right. And if not, you need to position yourself so that they can. And if they don't, then you call them out.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, this isn't a fight. It's not a fight against you and me. It's a fight to make people whole and better. We are losing our Black people. We are diminishing ourselves.
Yeah.
Wake up, people. Wake up.
And that is everything this topic was supposed to be about at the end. When I tell you guys, I told you that we would dive into what this topic meant by the time we were done talking. Everything that the amazing Mrs. Lisa Allen has been able to share with us is everything I was hoping this topic would be and more. Everything she does is tied into what Audacity of Women is hoping to be. Okay, so everything that platform, it is always available and accessible. First off, I want to thank you because I could not have talked about this topic by myself. Okay, I need to start there because I think a lot of people try and talk about this and it becomes very biased, right? You can only talk about one side of a conversation without having the different experiences, the challenging of your thoughts. You have to have someone else to discuss it. And I'm happy it was you. It was absolutely amazing. So I want to thank you.
Thank you for having me, Jasa.
Yes, of course. And as always, you already know I'm going to be talking to you about different projects that we're going to do because it cannot stop here.
Yes.
This is just the start, but y'all already know how we do. Everything that I have to share with you, as I said, everything for Lisa is going to be available. I will be posting all of her information on our website. I will make sure I share all of her social media platforms, her website. All of her work is going to be attached to our episode. But before I go, do you have any last words for our listeners?
I just have this to say. Because I am the journey. So I'm going to leave it with the journey, right? We're all on a journey somewhere, and oftentimes external forces create our narratives and decide how we're going to walk, talk, and act. Mm-hmm. Dig deep inside yourself and start exploring your own world. When you start tapping into that, all of those external forces mean nothing. And the world will begin to heal one person at a time. So go on the journey and your lives will change and so will the world. Thank you, Jessa, for having me.
Yes, of course, y'all. You already know what it is. It's Contrary to the Culture. Until next time, this was Broken Windows Effect.
Bye.
All right, that was our episode. Thanks so much for listening to Contrary to the Culture. Again, I am your host, Jasa King. You can find full show notes from today's episode at audacityofwomen.com under the podcast tab. Let's connect on Instagram at Just Jasa podcast. There you will find clips from our various segments and more information about yours truly. If you're loving the podcast, I'd be so honored if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave me a review. Until next time.
Ever need a boost, count on me for the 1-2. Trouble don't last when the tough get going. Baby, all we do is win, so show me my opponent. Adversity, doubt, stress, could care less. Cause how we handle those like an S on our chest. Super proud of how we held it down.